Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the webinar, EUCROF xShare Open Call, Enabling Interoperable Health Data Sharing Across Europe. In a few seconds, we will start. We are waiting meanwhile for the participants to join. So before we start the webinar, I want to give you some instructions. The webinar will run for about 1 hour and 30 minutes, with the final 30 minutes dedicated to a Q&A session. During that time, we will read your questions aloud and our speakers will answer to them directly. All participants will remain muted during the webinar, but you're welcome to submit questions anytime using the question box. You can do this also during the presentation. A PDF version of the presentation and the recording will be available for download on the EUCROF webpage. Now, I will do a quick introduction of the speakers of today's webinar. Starting with Deepak Kalra, the president of the European Institute for Innovation Through Health Data, or IHD, Ioannis Matsakis, EUCROF vice president and CEO of Telemedicine Technologies, Peter Castellin, clinical data strategy advisor at IHD, Catherine Kronaki, secretary general at LH7 Europe, Christophe Maes, Business Development and Audit Manager at IHD, Mario Fregonara Medici, Chief Digital Transformation and Information Officer, Rebecca Baker, Standards Developer and Real-World Data at CIDIS, and Jean-Sébastien Goussieu, founder of CureWiki. Now I leave the floor to the first speaker, Catherine Kronaki. Thank you, Catherine.
Hello, everyone. The aim of my short presentation here is to talk to you about the xShare project, which is about expanding the electronic health record exchange format in the European health data space. And I will start with the European health data space, and please change the slides at my note. The EHDS is a fundamentally revolutionary regulation in that it is truly putting the patients at the center of their health and care. And what it does, it actually allows you to access and download a copy of your data in a computable form, in H7 file format. And frequently people ask me, all my data, can I get all my data in one place? And this is actually the aspiration. We can do a bunch of things with the regulation. We can set access restrictions. We can opt out. We can insert information from our side to the electronic health record. We can appoint an authorized representative like a guardian. We can also request rectification of the data. And that's an opportunity to also use computable, structured, high quality data to fill missing gaps in the electronic health records. And then once you have your data corrected and in good quality, then you can provide a copy of the data to another app, or you can exercise endless opportunities that relate to AI and analytics and essentially computable insights. It is a great opportunity also to connect public health and clinical research, as we will see in a minute. Next slide, please. So xShare is exactly that. It's about expanding the European electronic health record exchange format to share and effectively use health data within the EHDS. And the button that demonstrates this capability is the yellow button at the center of this effort. And the movement we hope you will join is about arguing that as citizens, we have the right to our health data in a computable, high quality form. Next slide. So what types of data does the regulation include? The regulation includes data about laboratory, hospital discharge report, patient summary, imaging report, e-prescription, and dispensation. And xShare with the yellow button goes one step further to click and share our health data in the format at the click of a button with the IPS for research, which is the topic of the open call, along with the previous ones, and care plans based on computable guidelines. And how do we share our data? How do we click and share? We can download and upload. We can one-time share, but we can also create the opportunity for a linked option where you share for a limited amount of time, as in the case of a telemonitoring situation. Next slide, please. For the format itself, I mentioned 807 Fire, and you see that there are various specifications out there. There are specifications for cross-border, for Europe. There are also global standards. And there are nuances and differences, but all of these are computable and depend clearly on each other. And 807 is doing a big effort to also create base standards on which the rest are based. Next, you see that for patient summaries and laboratory, we already have the standard, and we have preliminary versions from others like prescriptions and imaging reports. And we also have an implementation guide that you can use as you implement the button. Next slide. In fact, we in a parallel activity, we are creating an industry label. And this is a conformance environment to be able to demonstrate that you can actually, in your product, download the data or upload, import data, or one-time share. And in the IAG Connectathon in Vienna last year, earlier this year, it was in June in Vienna, 13 recipients, 13 products received this label from 10 countries. They were digital health companies for the most part, but there were also member state agencies and regional authorities, hospitals, and academic institutions. And they showed using test tools that they are capable to demonstrate this. Some of them also did hospital discharge reports in Italy. Next slide, please. So you can be one of them. In fact, 74 already responses have been received in the open calls. And if you click on the QR code here, you can be one of them. We have interest demonstrated from 29 countries to show us innovations based on the format. Next slide. So in a nutshell, xShare is about everyone being able to share their health data in the format at the click of a button. There is a label that products can indicate so that they gain consumer trust. There is a button. There is the hub, which will be working on updating the specifications. And there are some important key points that the format is fostering engagement and drives research and innovation, actionable insights based on data provided by the EHDS. We are supporting the Digital Health Compass for 2030, the vision of the EU for a human-centered sustainable digital future. And there are benefits. We can simplify the sharing of trusted health data and foster citizen science. We can actually choose which apps to trust and which ones we use because they give us control. We also strengthen the digital resilience of hospitals. We make hospitals more fit for the purpose of clinical trials. And we also advance global leadership in digital health standards from Europe to the world. Next slide. So what is in for you? So why would you care to click on this QR code and join the open call for area board adopters of the xShare button? Well, you can get ready for the EHDS. You can have HL7 Fire knowledge beyond what you already have. You can implement the yellow button and be recognized for that. You can test it online or in person and get the label. You can also join the EUCROF Code of Conduct for GDPR. You can get support from HS7 Fire experts if you can get stuck. You can be recognized and you can have the opportunity to be selected for funding. Next slide, please. So what are the next steps if you choose to take a photo of this QR code? You can fill in our brief questionnaire, and you can be reached out for an interview. You can start implementation of the use cases, and we will support you. We will be together with you with specifications, sample data, online testing tools, community meetups, help desk, and online videos that will help you and will raise your visibility also. You can be a role model for other companies and you can be differentiated because you will be also able to present your solutions and be recognized for innovation in the next EUCROF. And with that, excuse me, I would like to give the floor to my colleague, Ioanni Matsakis. Please, Ioanni.
Thank you very much, Catherine. So I'm going to dive a bit more on the specifics of the open call. How can you apply? Who is eligible? And maybe, Anna, you can go to the next slide. I just want to say that the implementation of the European Health Data Space is really one of the key strategic actions at the level of the European Union to really foster competitiveness of the European industry in the domain of clinical research in general, but also at the crossroads of clinical research and primary care. So it's really an important endeavor, and we see currently a very strong push from the healthcare professionals who don't want to recapture data in multiple systems. And also there is an upcoming still, and where is the position of xShare, an upcoming demand from the patients themselves. And this is facilitated with the implementation and wider adoption of digital clinical trials, digital clinical studies, with the e-consent becoming adopted at a much wider space, and all the digitalized clinical data process. So the purpose of the open call, and by answering to this open call, you are really preparing your company and the stakeholders with whom you have regular interactions to be part of this game. To answer to this open call, the purpose of it is really to implement a few business cases that have been identified in preliminary works that have been done within the xShare project, and which will be further detailed in some other slide. Next slide, please. So who can apply? All affiliated members of EUCROF. But if you are working with a hospital, with some academic consortium, with some other cluster or whatever, even private players, you can involve them in your demonstrator and your implementation, because what we would like to see is an implementation that will have an impact, and therefore you need to take with you your customers or at least the stakeholders with whom you have regular cooperation. Next slide. Yes, so again, just about EUCROF affiliates, this means that you are a member of one of the national associations which are constituting EUCROF. EUCROF is a federation of CRO national associations, and also there are some associate members to EUCROF. So this is what is meant by affiliate. So you have to, in your outline proposal, when you deposit and prepare it, you need to indicate to which national association you are a member of. Then eligibility criteria. The candidate service provider, we now rather use the term service providers for clinical research than CROs anymore, because we have a variety of service providers. As I said, must be affiliated with EUCROF, as explained it. and engage in adhering to the EUCROF GDPR Code of Conduct for Service Providers in Clinical Research. You have two links below with all the details, the official documents of the code, the public registry of those companies who are engaged currently in starting the adherence process. And of course, this EUCROF code has been adopted by the 27 EU member states and UDPB, the European Data Protection Board, in September 24. And we are now in the process of implementing the governance body, meaning starting the adherence process. And by the way, Christophe Maes, who is going to speak after me, is the vice chairman of the monitoring body of this EUCROF code. Then the proposed demonstration project must fall within the purpose of the open call, as indicated earlier on, one of the 10 business cases detailed in the Appendix 1. It is important to note that xShare as such is much focused on the patient empowerment, and the xShare button is about the patient empowerment. So this is a dimension that is going to be looked at very carefully. Next slide, please. What are the benefits? We have already said a few of the benefits. We try not to be more precise. One first of the benefits is that successful proposals, we get a public exposure, in particular at the EUCROF 26 conference in Amsterdam, next February 1 to 3. It's a very high-level conference on clinical research. I invite you to have a look at the agenda of this conference, at the program of the conference. All proposals could have a poster exposed at this conference and be presented by means of short videos in LinkedIn, exposures through social media and websites. These are the normal channels that EUCROF is using, and the whole EUCROF xShare project, is using to promote its activities. The proposals with best rank will get financial support from EUCROF. I will say a word about that. We mentioned already the industry xShare label. I also mentioned the EHDS readiness for your company, and then the priority to get the adherence mark to the EUCROF Code of Conduct, because indeed in 26, the governance body will have to focus on a number of companies to make the first approvals, and therefore you'll have a priority line. Next slide, please. Yeah, about the awards and about the financing. So we have defined 3 levels of awards, well, 4 actually. The Platinum Award, where there will be 1 winner with more exposure, maybe. Then a Gold Award with 2 winners, Silver Award with 3 winners, and the Bronze Award, where everybody, all of these, with no limitation in number of winners from the Bronze Award, every one of those winners will have the possibility, subsidized by EUCROF, to participate to the EUCROF conference with posters and dedicated follow-up to adhere to the code. The results will be announced at the EUCROF 26 conference in Amsterdam, as said before. And about the finances, we have not connected with a fixed amount every of the awards. Sorry for that, because we are in a EC subsidized project, and we have some constraints in how we handle the finances. So when you will deposit your outline proposal, we will continue with evaluating which are the needs of your project from the point of view of finances. And what I can say is that Silver, Gold, and Platinum Awards will have funding in the range between 20 and 30K, depending on the actual needs of the project and of the implementation and of the demonstration power of the pilot implementation that you will suggest and propose. This is in average. This will be a discussion, and of course you will need to provide a financial assessment of the implementation that you intend to do, so that we can have this discussion and sign the contract awarding a service contract awarding the implementation in addition to the award per se. Next slide, please. These are the business use cases. There is a document in the information package which I invite you to read. I will not go through all of them. I would like to spend a bit more time on two examples just to be more practical. But yes, we have feasibility studies, generally speaking, several pre-screening, recruitment of patients into studies, and we have also, in connection with the EDC platforms and/or registries such as longitudinal cohort tracking. We have also there a scenario where the patient can initiate his own record in the registry or the cohort through the consent process and through the patient space of the application. If you don't have, it is maybe an opportunity to create such a patient interface. So let's go to the two other slides, which purpose is really to give you an idea of the kind of things. So the first one, patient matching portal for clinical studies. It's what will be later on illustrated in practice by QOWiki, where you have a commercial platform that connects patients with investigational sites and mostly with studies that are fitting their own eventual diseases. So of course, if that platform has 1,000 registered patients or 100,000, there is a difference in the terms of impact, and so this is one of the things we want you to focus a little bit. Think about the impact, how much what you are doing is going to impact either healthcare professionals or patients in numbers, or streamline a process, of course. In this example, if you upload the IPS Plus, meaning the International Patient Summary, with some additions which are appropriate for research, this means that it is available already. So it may be, just to illustrate, that for this kind of scenario, of business case, you need synthetic data because the IPS Plus is not yet delivered out of the electronic health records widely in Europe. But however, if your platform is a commercial platform, then it is a platform that has a great implementation power, and this will be well estimated. Next slide, please. The other example is where we have automated data transfer, for instance, for patient registries. Healthcare professionals nowadays, they are really pushing very much to avoid double entry. So here, it's not only the IPS Plus that comes into play, but there is also the European Electronic Health Record exchange format. That may come into play. Maybe it is not yet implemented in most of the electronic health record applications, but if you have such a business case, and if you can impact a number of CRF which is very high, then of course you'll have a potential impact in the implementation, in the early adoption of the EHDS standards, and this is of utmost importance. And there is something that will change here. Is what will change with xShare is that then you can also give the power to the patient by enabling the patient to electronically consent, and while he is consenting, or his or her is consenting, then they can also upload their IPS Plus R and facilitate the initial creation of the CRF of that specific patient registry or cohort. So these are practical examples. I hope that they are practical enough for you to be well understood. And with this, I would like to pass the floor to Christophe. Oh, no, sorry. Yes, I have to say a few words about how to apply. Very easy. So there is an application form which you can fill online. And anyway, I suppose, Anna, that we have this link on the xShare website and probably also
Yes.
in the EUCROF website. Then there is a 1 or 2 pager outline proposal, which we would expect that you would deposit before December 15th. And then that's the first step. That's the first step. So you will indicate the business case which you are covering. You will indicate who you are and to which EUCROF affiliate member you are pertaining. You will indicate with who you are going to deploy your business case, and you will also indicate how much mature is the demonstration which you are going to implement. When we say mature, is it a commercial product or is it just a technical breadboard, etc. Okay, and for any help, you have the info@eucrof.eu, where you can write and you'll get all what is needed, or xshare@eucrof.eu, where you get support in this process. And with this, I would like to pass the floor now to Christophe to explain more about the assessment framework, etc. Please, Christophe, thank you very much.
Thank you, Ioanni. Next slide, please. So once you did your application, of course, an assessment framework and evaluation framework will be set up. And as Ioanni already mentioned, first of all, the eligibility criteria are the first to enter your application and to see if you're eligible. So it's about adhering to the code, adhering to you have to demonstrate which kind of business use case you will address to. And then we have a 10 plus 1, 10 different core impact and feasibility criteria. So they are mentioned over there. So once, as Ioanni mentioned, once you did your application, you will be asked, but some of the core criteria are already in the basic application, but the other ones we will ask you to fulfill or to complete. So the first is the business use case correspondence, that's already addressed. Patient and healthcare professional gains is also addressed by Ioanni. And then we have the xShare yellow button implementation quality. So therefore we will refer to the implementation guideline, and we will ask you how will you comply to that implementation guideline. The solution quality management and maturity, that's also part of the code of conduct. So we will ask what kind of quality management systems do you have in place? How can you prove it? Which certificates do you have? Which labels do you have related to quality management aspects? And then the replication hour across Europe, the committee, which will I talk about in a few moments. So the committee will assess your solution's ability to be replicated broadly. So it's about scaling up. It's not only in your country or in a part of the country. No, it's about scaling up. AGS and exchange format awareness and adoption. Catherine mentioned that already. So how are you prepared? How will you adapt to that? How will you prove that your solution on one of the business use cases have an adoption part and an awareness kind of aspects? EUCROF code, data protection, compliance. There will be, let's say, about 7, 8 different specific. The EUCROF code has much more criteria, of course, which you maybe know already, but we will focus specific on 10, 15 specific criteria. It will be related to the DPO, it will be related to data sharing agreements, of course, DPIA, but that will come later also. And then it's about you. That's kind of part of the quality management system, but how will you improve things that went wrong and build in lessons learned in the process? So that's will be assessed also. We will guide you in this. After your application, you will receive a document that will be ready by the 21st of November. It's in its last iteration at this moment within the project. And then, of course, the business case implementation. How do you see, how do you prove, or how will you envisage that, again, your business case or your solution to that business case can scale up? Another important aspect is the usability and accessibility of evaluation criteria, but that will be addressed by Mario a little bit later in this webinar. Next slide, please. So, of course, all these aspects will be assessed by a committee. You see here the different roles. So we have the scientific leader, it's Catherine Kronaki. Then we have the representative of the MEDCOM, it's the community, the party which is responsible for the project coordination. So that will be in the financial aspects. That's Jana Rasmussen. So I will be the representative of xShare Work Package 5, and also, as Ioanni mentioned, the COSUP Vice Chair. We have a representative of the biotechnical and pharmaceutical industry, Nadir Amour. And now we have two that are in the last line, the finish line, representatives of the investors and also of the scientific committee of the EUCROF 26 conference. And as an observer, the EUCROF observer will be Ioanni Matsakis with no decision rights, no assessments, but just as a neutral observer within that assessment procedure. Next slide, please. There is a decision-making procedure behind this. I will not go into detail, but all 10 of the feasibility criteria, scaling criteria, has a weighting factor, an impact factor, and also the usability and accessibility evaluation criteria. So in total, of course, 100%. And decision thresholds are mentioned over there. And the final decision will be given by the committee, and you will be invited, those who are awarded will be invited, of course, to the EUCROF conference, which is 1st to 3rd of February next year, as mentioned by Ioanni. Next slide, please. And here you will find, when you got the slides, you will see the different, once you are awarded, then another assessment gets into place. Some of them are already mentioned. It's the xShare label, which you now already all can perform or can address to. And then we have, once you defined your specific use case, then we will ask for a specific DPIA, which more specific to the data flow and the data architecture related to that specific use case. So we will assess that part. And then a third party will come into place, meaning we have to check in your application form. The second step, you will have to prove how you will comply to the interoperability aspects, but now we will test it in the real situation. So that will be done by a third party. And also mentioned by Ioanni and Katrina, during next year, we will take you also on a journey to get a code of conduct certificate provided by the COSUP, and that we will help you to have that certificate, to adhere to the code of conduct. And at the end, either it's via a self-assessment, either via a third party with auditors, but that's the journey. That is not an obligation. The adherence is one thing, and then let's say the journey we will take you through in that specific business use case related to the certificate. Next slide, please. And to end, this is the timeline for the open calls. So normally it was November 15, we closed the calls, but because we could not arrange the webinar sooner, so we will postpone until 15 of December. So all details are already mentioned, and you can find them on the EUCROF website. At the latest 15th of January, there will be a decision made. Notification to all the nominees will also be made, and then the awarding will take place in the beginning of February, and then by the latest 15th of April, the contract should be signed and the technical assessment should be done. And in addition, of course, it would be good if you already have the industry labeled xShare label, and we will start the implementation the latest 15 April of your business use case. We have to remember at the end of execution is November 15, which you will provide the deliverables as will be mentioned in the contract. And if wanted, you can have the code of conduct certificate. So that's the timeline from now until 1 year from here, what in a very helicopter view, what should be done. And now I would like to hand over to Deepak, who will give us an explanation about the IPS. Thank you, Deepak.
Thank you, Christoph. So you've already heard a few times through the course of this session, the IPS Plus. Rebecca will take over from me in just a few seconds to tell you what it is and how you can find out more about it. But I just want to set the scene very briefly. You've understood that the European health data space is going to see a substantial investment across member states in scaling up the ability to concentrate at regional and national levels the patient summary and the other data in the European exchange format. When we look at the kind of information that the patient summary is expected to contain, and when we look across clinical trial protocols at the eligibility criteria and the kind of data that they routinely collect as a common core across therapeutic areas, there is an irresistible similarity. These are so close to each other that it feels like madness not to bring them together so that we can get maximum value from this pan-European investment. And so we felt that this tantalizing alignment should be formalized as something that just somewhat extends the international patient summary as we currently intend it, to make it reusable for research. So Rebecca, how did we go about achieving that tantalizing increase, modest increase? Over to you, please.
Thank you, Deepak. I will give you the story of the journey of the IPS Plus and tell you all about the content. So let's look into the future. Imagine a world where the clinician in London and the clinical researcher in Milan and the public health analyst in Lisbon all have access to the same patient's international patient summary data. And that patient shared that data using the xShare button. Next slide. The HL7 International Patient Summary supports healthcare and cross-border care exchange of data. The International Patient Summary Plus supports broadening that concept to connect to public health, clinical research, and other uses of that data. Next slide. These are the research objectives for the xShare project, and we use this to frame the work and the scope of the data elements. Now we need you to test, demonstrate, validate, and use this IPS Plus in real-world data sets. Next slide. So where we started directly in the HL7 FHIR specification. This figure in the middle is actually from that specification, and we use that to prioritize our core data elements. On the right, you'll see research concepts, and we're saving that for later. There's more work to be done. Next slide. What we did was we took all the different international patient summaries. There's an ISO, there's an IHE, there's a European, there are several. We took the data element concepts from there, as well as the IHD projects, EHR4CR and the EHR2EDC, their data elements, and then public health data elements from the population health information research infrastructure work. We took the CDISC case report form standard, which is called CDASH, and then again aligned all the data elements to pick a 100 core set. After we had our data element concepts, we then aligned the terminology. We ideally would have one terminology, but we know and realize that that is never going to happen, so we have them aligned. And now we depend on you to test and use this. So join us to make seamless patient health data sharing across Europe a reality. Next slide. This is the view of all of the data element concepts. And if you look closely in each of the bubbles, there's a domain, and that's CDIS talk, and there's a category, and that's IPS HL7 talk. All of these concepts are covered except for the black data element concepts. Those are the new ones that are needed for research. So you can tell there's not very many additions. You'll also note that there's gray over there in the right bubble. Those are adverse events. Those would not typically be found within an EHR or real-world data unless they're previously baked in. Fortunately, we have the Vulcan Fire Adverse Event Implementation Guide, and we point you to that within the IPS Plus spec. Next slide. This view just gives you an idea of the questions and answers around the data element concepts. And this particular topic is medical history. You can see on that case report form, which you probably are familiar with, the C- annotations are in gray and the SDTM are in red. And that's just to show the traceability of the transformation. On the right, you can see the question of the fire path origin and then the answer. And then connecting SNOMED, SNOMED actually has a code for the clinical finding as well as the answer code. Next slide. So this is a view of the core harmonized data elements. And we've provided you the headers on the screen, just so that you can tell. And I have three things that I want you to note. There are C codes in every row, and that connects you nicely to the CDISC biomedical concepts and all of that content in machine readable form that is available to you. And we now have collection specializations as well. There are also SNOMED code questions and SNOMED code answers, and that provides you with the SNOMED aspect and linking to SNOMED. Now you'll note that sometimes the data model covers the questions, so just keep that in mind. Now, each of these are broken down, and this is in table format for the humans to consume. The turquoise row of the set of observations provide you with the topic variable. If you do not have the topic variable, the rest of your data element concepts are not going to add much value to you. Now, participating in the open call will enable you to better understand the standards and, key point, help refine them. Please, next slide. Throughout this journey, we have had numerous terminology discussions, and there are two prevailing perspectives. One, we need to make all codes available in order to have that precision for clinical documentations available to physicians. The other side is we really need a defined limited code list, and that promotes interoperability and the rigor required for clinical research. We hope that what we've provided you in a pragmatic way covers both of these perspectives. Next slide. This is a view of how we envision implementers to use these standards. You'll first go to the HL7 Fire IPS and then understand how that works. And as you remember, that covers all of the content. And then you'll look to the IPS Plus, and we have a toolbox there, but we also have, very importantly, links that cover HL7 Fire IGs for some of the problems that Mario is going to cover in a minute. We also have links to CDIS content. As you know, both of these standards organizations cover a breadth of content. So we've provided you links to what we think you will find helpful. Next slide. Finally, we have use cases. Now, you've seen the big list that Yanni and Christoph has provided you. Within the IPS Plus specification, we have a subset and we provide the technical aspects, and Peter's going to cover that in a minute. So be part of shaping the future. Participate in the EUCROF open call. Next. With that, I hand over to Mario. Thank you.
Thank you, Rebecca. Good afternoon. I'm here to speak about an important aspect of the xShare open call. The user's experience must be guaranteed in the context of interoperable health data sharing, in particular across the Europe. Next slide, please. Next. Digital accessibility is a cornerstone of the EU vision for a union of equality. Since the Web Accessibility Directive came into force in 2021, the public sector bodies, including a healthcare organization, must ensure their digital services are accessible to all persons, regardless of ability, which is essential for an inclusive society. The main goal is to ensure that digital health tools are available, safe, and inclusive of all the patient and also the health care professionals. Next one, please. Why is it so important? It's more important for patient safety. It means accessible and useful interface that reduce errors and misinterpretation. For legal compliance, because meeting accessibility standard helps to mitigate the regulatory risk. It's important for health equity, because inclusive design ensures that no one is left behind. Us for usability, poor design leads to missed care, opportunities, and user abandonment. And at least for business impact, because better usability means higher user adherence and low support cost from a technical point of view. Next one, please. Let's look about the legislation framework. They said the Web Accessibility Directive mandates accessibility for public sector digital services. This year, the European Accessibility Act extended accessibility requirement to the general online product and services, especially for persons with disabilities and also for the elderly. These two directives are complementary, and their implementation is supported by the international standard, the EN 301549. But together they form a robust legal foundation for inclusive digital health. Next one. To meet these goals, you must design your system with a POUR principle. Perceivable, operable, understandable, and robust. You must consider user-centered design, including research activities, privacy and clinical safety by design and by default, put attention to the diverse users, vision, hearing, motor, cognitive, languages, and at least digital literacy. And also take care of different care settings from clinics to patient home. And also important the adaptability to technology context like bandwidth and device types. As part of your deliverables, you will define 4 or 5 or 6 personas to guide your business case and ensure that you are designed for the real people in the real scenario. Next one. Designing effective user interface means prioritizing critical information and simplify workflow, prevent errors and support recovery. From a clinical safety perspective, means to prioritize alert and provide confirmation for high-risk action, avoid ambiguous labels, and maintain audit trails for safety and accountability. Remember, as we build a system to manage F data for the EHDS open call, we must ensure that they are accessible, usable, and inclusive, not just technical interoperable, but truly used by all. In conclusion, the user acceptance is not only a checkbox. It's the foundation of the successfully digital health, designed with empathy, inclusivity, and safety in mind. Thank you for your attention, and I will now pass the floor to Peter to continue the webinar on technical requirement.
Thank you very much, Mario. I'll share a bit more about where and how to find technical requirements as soon as you have submitted and have been awarded the use case that you are proposing. With that, next slide, please. So from a technical requirements perspective, I could be very short and I could just say I refer to the implementation guide. Now I'll give a bit more insight into how to look into this and what is included all there. So as you've heard already, Rebecca mentioned about the IPS Plus. I'll give a bit more insights into where and what information you can find. And the IPS Plus is the area that is relevant for all use cases. Now, the IPS Plus is very broad, and in a number of use cases, there's only a subset of what the IPS Plus foresees required. So consider that element, but how and where that information is structured and available, you'll find in the implementation guide. There is also in that implementation guide a number of use cases that have been more in-depth described. And so from a technology perspective, so the architecture or the data flow for those use cases have been described in this document as well. The reference to where to find it is also mentioned here. And that's on the, let's say, the HL7 Europe environment. So this implementation guide's links, and then please go to the next slide. The IPS that has been described very nicely in the HL7 Fire implementation guide, which covers the IPS in general, to the IPS Plus, which is then focusing on the use cases in view of research as well as public health. So those are two elements that are to be looked into in a combined fashion. It feeds the one, feeds the other, and vice versa. There are a number of tools that have been added in the IPS Plus implementation guide, and those are describing how to translate the IPS information into FHIR that's coming primarily of the IPS implementation guide, how that then links into STTM, which is the CDISC standard for submissions for clinical trials, and what that core data set looks like, including as well the value set alignments and those three workflows. Where does it flow? Why is IPS Plus used and how is it used? So I'll give a bit on the next slide, a bit more insights into how this is then structured and how you can find back. Next slide, please. So how does the implementation guide look like? So the structure of the IPS Plus implementation guide has a number of components. So there is a home table of content. So on the business side, that documents the why of the IPS Plus and use cases. So it refers to the use cases as Ioanni mentioned them, but also focusing primarily on those three use cases that are then further detailed in the application section. The data is primarily a kind of a recap of what Deepak and Rebecca shared about the IPS Plus. Where does it come from? How is it structured? Now, in the technology section, that's primarily for the implementation people, of you, of course, that is, let's say, giving some more detailed information and insights into how it's structured. So what is the IPS Plus structure? It shares the xShare core harmonized data elements. It links to the FHIR resources, and it helps into understanding how it all maps with LOIN codes, SNOMED codes, how does that all fit together? And it also describes the data flow diagrams for the three use cases. And then in the download section, there is some more insights and information where you can download all the artifacts. So for all people who are familiar with implementation guides in FHIR, this is kind of the general structure. For those who are not so familiar yet, it's pretty straightforward to go through, and I hope this will help in understanding the structure. Next slide, please. So how or what information is available for the IPS Plus, and which is then to be used in all use cases? So as Ioanni mentioned, there are 10 described. You even can submit for another use case, but that requires some more insights into why it would, according to you, be an interesting use case to further work on. But in all these use cases, this is information to be used as the core harmonized data elements. So what Rebecca shared before, that's all available. So the Excel file with all those tabs on all the information. What are all the elements? How does it link between the information relevant for clinical studies as well as for then the information that could come from the IPS? There is also an element that shares that mapping between FHIR and SDTM. So once you have your IPS FHIR resources, how does it map to SDTM? That information, there are a number of examples like for patient condition, medication, and all of that have more detailed insights and mapping information all available. So the example that is on the screen here is for the lab results. And also there are some examples of SNOMED and LOIN maps that's available as well. So you could see how those concepts are interchangeable or linked to each other. So that's kind of the basis for all use cases. And on the next slide, please. You see those three use cases that have been worked out a bit more in detail. So we have first kind of the study protocol feasibility. We also have described the potential study participation. So where a patient would be interested to participate in a study, that's a flow that we have described here, as well as then also when a study effectively is ongoing, how information can be more easily made available for a study so that there is no need to have manual data entry of information for the study. Next slide gives then the overview of what type of information from a technical perspective, so kind of the overall data flow. Now, we also recognize that today the IPS Plus data is not in a certain regional or national EHDS environment. So once you look into this element, kind of simulate how this could look like in view of creating your applications. So the idea is that information for the IPS Plus would be made available in an EHDS environment, holding information that comes from hospitals or GP systems, but all one electronic health record for each patient. And patient in this flow would then give his or her consent for her or his information to be used within clinical research or in public health. Next slide, please. This goes into the multiple use cases. I'm not going through all these flows in detail. Know that all of this information is available and more described in the implementation guides. But for example, you see on the left side, the study protocol feasibility, where researchers would be looking into, hey, I have here a study in view. In my mind, I would like to understand whether there is, let's say, an audience, quote unquote, that would be relevant for this study, and therefore has access to IPS Plus data, all of course anonymized, de-anonymized, or let's say available for usage, but without any information related to the people themselves. So that information could be then used to see whether a certain protocol or certain study would be feasible. The other one is then what Ioanni also referred to in his view or in his overview, where a patient would be interested to understand, my health is not so good. So I would like to understand whether there is a study, because all the treatments up till now haven't been very successful. I want to understand whether there is potentially a clinical trial out there that would be potentially help me in my health situation. Therefore, through a PHR, a patient health record system, would then be sharing his or her IPS Plus data to see whether there is one or the other study ongoing in the neighborhood that would allow that person to be participating in. So that's a flow that has been described as well in our implementation guide. Next slide, please. And then during study, let's say there are different flows, a kind of an observational study, which is more kind of real world evidence after the facts, if I might call it like that, or prospective clinical trial where there's a new drug to be assessed or researched. So there are multiple flows described here in the implementation guide where information that is available in an electronic health record does not need to be re-entered in a clinical trial database, whether it's a registry or an observational study, or whether it's a prospective clinical trial. That type of flows have been described in this case. Next slide, please. Now, there are a number of overall technical considerations. So the idea that we would like to put forward are it's open architecture. So meaning like it's interoperable and it can exchange information with whatever type of system. It's not specifically only working with this type of solution, but it works with a standardized way and able to work with other applications. And from a security and GDPR perspective, security has well been described in the HL7 FHIR security information sets. So that's available over there. And also from a privacy perspective, there is also a preference for minimal and ideally none patient data to be stored in a persistent way. So kind of, yes, information like the IPS Plus needs to be used in view of your application, of course. But once, let's say, the usage has been done, that information is not stored permanently, but the information goes back to where it resides. So those are a number of overall technical considerations to be considered. The next slide, please. And that's, I believe, the final slide. This information has been all grouped into what you could call an adoption kit. So we have an X bundle for the xShare IPS Plus for research. The link is mentioned on the slide and will be is of course available afterwards as well. And that information is kind of an umbrella environment that holds references to all the use cases. And so you understand that in the implementation guide, there are 3 more detailed but there are 7 others. All of those use cases with a bit more information than just the title are also available and referred to through this X bundle. The IPS Plus implementation guide, of course, is one of the elements that is being referred to. The IPS Plus core data set specifically as well as links to base synthetic data is available here. So it's base synthetic data. It's not the IPS Plus, as you have already heard. There is no IPS Plus available yet, but some base IPS information, synthetic, is available and referred to that you could consider for usage in your application. And that leads me to, let's say, my last slide, and I'll hand it over to Jean-Sébastien.
Hi, everybody. So part to maybe give a demonstration on candidacy for this call and already real-world facts that we will develop in the next pages. Next page, yes. So I'm the founder of CureWiki. CureWiki is a patient's first digital platform where we really help patients to implicate themselves in research related to their illness. So we start from the patients and we funnel them to potential research. And we have approximately 40,000 users, but also now more than 5 million data points, real-world data points. And we have we are using AI on the trial in and exclusion criteria. Our partner for this project is Vito, which is the Flemish official public research platform. And they have built Vitalink, which is the link of the Belgian Flemish citizen with the electronic health record repository. And it is with that connector that we will go use the data of the electronic health record for a better patient pre-screening. Next page, please. So instead of words, I suggest we directly pass to the next page, and that's a graph on what we do. And actually, I explain what we do as is today as CureWiki and how the xShare project and the yellow button will be integrated. So we parse with an AI all the in and exclusion criteria of all the studies. And with AI, we have generated unique questions where patients can pre-screen themselves, which is the step 2 in this schema. And as a patient, you first have socio-demo questions and then illness-related questions. And then the last questions are study-specific questions. So the idea behind it is instead of doing study-centric patient recruitment, we really start from the patient and go bottom-up to the potential research. As a result, after something like 40 to 50 questions, as a patient, I have a short list of potential research where I can participate, where I am a positive pre-screen. And it is as a patient, so the patient sits in the driving seats from A to Z. As a patient, I can see, oh, this study is interesting. I discuss this with my specialist or with my GP. And then the next step is I can go to the specific screening appointment at the site that I have chosen as a patient. And then the next steps are out of CureWiki. So we stop with a positive pre-screen delivered by himself to the site that he has selected for a specific study. Now, when we add the opportunity of the xShare project and the yellow button, what we have seen is that in the parsing of all these in and exclusion criteria, we have discovered that a lot of criteria are very difficult for simple people to answer. For instance, some blood results or some medication that I take and things like that. And so the opportunity of xShare is in the chatbot, and you can click next page. in the chatbot, we add the yellow button whenever there is a question that I am not able to answer myself. And I can freely decide for that question to call the yellow button and to call and give authorization to CureWiki to go inside the electronic health record and get the answer needed to do a better pre-screening. And as a result, next page. As a result, for instance, here in the shortlist, thanks to this additional question that I would never have been able to answer myself, but thanks to the yellow button and go get the answer in the electronic health record, I am able to see that instead of 3 options, I at the end only have 2 options because I have been excluded of this first option that was initially in my shortlist of positive pre-screens. So this is really how we believe the yellow button initiative can help very practically for the patients to have a better and faster pre-screening, but also for the researchers to reduce the number of screen failures, because in this case, the patient will not have the opportunity to candidate as a volunteer for the first trial, because it is not a positive pre-screen anymore. So everybody wins time, and time is the common enemy. Next page, please. In the backend, what we will do is the citizen can register either directly on CureWiki, either via the We Are platform, which is a Flemish platform. And as a patient, whenever it is needed, I can click the yellow button to activate the link between the We Are platform and the electronic health record, which is the Vitalink link that goes directly on eHealth, which is the Belgian national eHealth record. And by doing that, we effectively go get answers to questions that a citizen cannot answer, but we also have decided to push all the information that the citizen gave via the CureWiki application into the We Are platform, so that the data can be reused also for other services. And we are also thinking to push the shortlist that is validated by the citizen into his eHealth record in a second step. The good news is that this is highly scalable, because once we do it with one national health record, eHealth record, we can duplicate it in interoperability with all the European countries participating into this project. Next page, please. So very pragmatically, we will do this in the Flanders with up to 100 citizens that have the need to show data that we will get into the electronic health record. And for this pilot, we have decided to have vaccination data and prescriptions of the last months. We could also go to the health the blood results. This is still in a negotiation and discussion part, but as you see, these 2 first data points that we get into the health record can help. And as a demonstration, we will show how many trials have been excluded for a patient out of the potential lists of participation. And we will also trace the quality of the positive pre-screens that are quote unquote volunteering themselves. So it's not a delivery, it's really an act from the patient to the research. And we follow up out of the positive pre-screens that ask to participate, how many are effectively integrated into a study. Next page, please. So it achieves next. So for the citizens, it's control over my own data. It's transparent and secure sharing. I decide when I click on the yellow button, and it's an instant feedback with the shortlist of positive pre-screens where I can potentially ask to volunteer. Next. For the researchers, it's a better verified data, so it's not only declarative from the patient, it's really data that we go get into his health record, it's fewer manual checks, and it's a faster, higher quality recruitment. Next. For the xShare and electronic health record, it's of course a real-world secondary use of data and a scalable model. And next, for society, it's a stronger medical innovation where the patients can really take ownership of their path to a better health. It's also reducing the cost of healthcare by reducing the study design, but also the recruitment costs and a better use of the existing e-health records. Next. So thank you for my part, and I think thank you for your attention. I think this is the final slide. So Ioanni,
Yes,
or someone else.
thank you, Jean-Sébastien. Thank you to all the speakers. Are there any questions, Asia, from the participants? I invite you again to write your questions in the question box and start asking the questions that are already there.
So first of all, I will answer the question by Omar Gonzalez, who was wondering if we can share the presentation or the video. All this will be shared on the EUCROF website. It will be shared in an open space, so you will have a chance to have a look and review whatever you wish to go more in depth with. I will read out the question of Thomas Valpotic. Which open EHR systems or providers have EUCROF already assessed as acceptable, and what regulatory validity does this assessment bear? I will read this again. I don't know who is the speaker who wishes to take it up. Which open EHR systems or providers have EUCROF already assessed as acceptable, and what regulatory validity does this assessment bear? Who wishes to take this question?
I think they have given an answer. At the moment, what I presented, sorry,
okay,
is what is the requirement of the open call is not the goal of the xShare project to evaluate the other solutions. So what I presented was the requirement for the xShare Open Call Award.
Yes, maybe if I can just a little bit complement this question, about this question at least. So it is precisely the purpose of the proposals, the business use cases implementation to eventually, depending, and you've seen the example presented by Jean-Sébastien, where he is going to interface with the Vito EHR systems. So that precisely, so that there is no action from EUCROF to assess systems or open EHR-based systems or providers yet, but in the various implementation cases that will be submitted, there will be a number of them that will be indeed interfaced. I see that Catherine has raised her hand. She always has additions to add.
I have something to say about that.
Yeah,
this is a very
please.
interesting question. Which open EHR systems have we already assessed? So I guess I could say that the EUCROF code of conduct is agnostic to the type of electronic health record system, A. And the second point that I would like to make is that we are really delighted that Open EHR Foundation is part now of xShare. And there are in the open call early adopters interests from open EHR systems to demonstrate the xShare button. So not yet, but I hope that we will work with you, Thomas, to show what is possible and maybe move a little bit the interoperability challenges and
Yes,
costs.
I could mention names of such systems which are already in the proposals that we have received so far, but it's not really the purpose here. I want to say, even if they're not aligned with all the standards at this point in demonstrating, it is still possible to implement an interface sometimes. And of course, in scaling up, the standards of the electronic of the European health data space is going to be a tremendous help, because this is what we face in practice. Is how do you scale up? We mentioned the use case number 3, where we exchange interoperate data from an electronic health record system with, for instance, the EDC system. It's an example. If you go from one, if in one registry you may have 25 hospital sites, and maybe you will have 25 different systems in every hospital with which you will have to interface. And if you add a second registry, you may have an overlap of 20 of those hospitals with another subsystem of the hospital. And you will multiply the interfacing, the machine-to-machine communication by the number of, by the combinatory possible options of those multiple things. So there, the standards are going to play a tremendous, of course, be of tremendous help. And I really would like to thank the whole, xShare consortium to have invited EUCROF to participate, because it's for us really, and I have seen the tremendous work that has been done in aligning the standards. That's really very, very helpful. And I want to thank you, Rebecca. Your explanations were really very clear, and also Peter the same. So this is going to be really helpful in real life conditions, I can tell you. And we see a very strong demand from the healthcare professionals, not yet from the patients widely, because they are represented by patient advocacy groups, and it takes a bit more time. But when you meet them, they repeat, we would like to be in the position to exercise our GDPR rights, you see. And with the EHDS, the yellow button, and those standards, they will be in the position to exercise their rights. That's the key point. Rebecca.
I would like to add on that. And as a recovering interoperability interface between registries and EHR data and research data, I cannot express the people that would be grateful when this is in place. So Deepak mentioned the irresistible similarities between the healthcare data and the research data. And if you think about the xShare project, if you know anything about it, it's taking 6 standards development organizations and aligning all the standards. And if you think about each standard is built for a specific use case, and I'm so glad to hear that Open Air is now joining the movement. And if we can connect all of that great work and put the interoperability puzzle together, then the data will go, retaining the meaning to ensure no more swivel chair interoperability. And I want one more thing to say is that CDISC actually has an API with a library, and CDISC content provides you the research protocol and then the beginning to the end. And I'm sure you all are aware of this, but I just want to highlight that each role and each standard is so important, and we need to work together to put this together, and we'll get there. And we're so close, and I'm so happy. Thank you.
Yes, Rebecca. 100% with you.
Wow, so much excitement. Thank you, Rebecca.
I see here a question from Virginie. Virginie is asking, are healthcare professionals, hospitals ready to share their data? Yes, I can say I witness that every day. And sometimes it's the software editors of the electronic healthcare records who are putting some barriers, because for them they have to implement, they have to align with the standard, and of course it is a kind of investment, and they are trying to use sometimes the data property issues beforehand just as as a reason for not doing things or making things more complicated than they should. So there it is where giving the floor to the patient to himself take the actions as this is done in the CureWiki example, that is going to change everything, really, because in this case nobody can how to say resist to this demand. You see, so we are very. It is 25 years that I follow this issue, and I must say that today I am very optimistic, and I hope many of you will be encouraged in preparing some proposition as in answer to our call, because we will try really to help as many consortia as we can in this project.
Where is the definition of IPS plus located?
I think Peter and Catherine have given already the URLs where to have a look.
Can we show the slides again, maybe?
Yes.
I think there was a nice slide from Peter. All the way to the end, please. But we will share the slides. Next. 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 Here. Maybe take a picture of this one.
We will share the slides in any case, so you will have all the links.
I will go on with questions if you want.
Yes.
Can the data subject refuse to share their identity or remain anonymous while sharing only their data, which does not identify them personally?
Well, I'll take this one. This is a great use case. And in fact, in xShare, we do have some tools that do the pseudonymization. So if you would like to demonstrate this option, we would also provide you with the tools to make this happen.
Okay, I'll go on with another long question. Under EHDS, patients can't directly push their own data directly to studies they are participating in. Reuse is permit-based inside secure EHDS environments retrospectively. This is different from the situation in the US, where trust in the individual's decision and individual choice paired with very robust controls on the vendor is there is the primary tenet. The protective approach in EHDS has limitations in terms of use and sharing of one's own data prospectively, which is the intent of most disease-stricken patients. How can researchers and patients interested in sharing data prospectively for a specific study use IPS Plus?
Deepak, you've raised your hand. You want to take this?
Well, I've offered to respond to this question. I'm sure a few of you could, but I just wanted to give some of you a break and let me answer this question. It's a lovely question because I think it illustrates one of the real challenges with the way the EHDS is positioned and framed. It divides life with data into something called primary use and something called secondary use. And there is an assumption that the secondary use provisions of the EHDS are the exclusive domain for which research can take place, and that primary use is all about clinical care and excludes research. And that is indeed how the regulation is framed. But the question, I think, rather neatly asks then, so how can the IPS or IPS Plus be used for research? And the answer is because if you take the primary use provisions of the EHDS, It extends the rights of the citizen or the patient under the GDPR to be able to download a computable, interoperable form of their exchange format data and to be able to do with it what they like. That ability is exactly what drove lovely Catherine to write the xShare proposal in the first place. It is how can we then enable citizens to do what they like with the data. And one of the things that a citizen can choose to do is to say, I want to participate in a clinical study if I can find one that I match with. That's what this webinar is all about. So it's actually taking the primary use provisions of the EHDS and redirecting it towards clinical research in a patient-centric way. So actually, it very neatly does exactly what the questioner asked, and it does not use the secondary use provisions of the EHDS, which have indeed got exactly the limitations the questioner put.
I can read a very last question. It's 5:29, so we're just on time, perfectly on time. Could this data be used to estimate the numbers of prospective trial participants in a given locality? For example, searching against condition-related terms and ordering by country address?
Deepak, please go on. You
Okay,
so
well,
nicely
the thing
answered the
is,
previous one.
yeah, because this was indeed my original driver for writing Work Package 5 in this proposal. That the primary use requirements and obligations on a member state require a country, for example, Italy, to be able to send, if urgently required, an exchange format summary on any Italian citizen to Belgium if one of their Italian citizens is ill and a Belgian physician urgently needs it. That requirement for urgency cannot be done if you receive a request in Italy and have to go hunting around all of the Italian hospitals and GPs to say, where can I find some information on this patient? Somebody needs it. They're going to have to prefetch. And if they prefetch, there will inevitably be regional or national repositories of the IPS or IPS Plus sitting there awaiting request from another country, but potentially queryable to answer exactly what you asked just now, dear questioner. So the answer is, whilst officially there is no promise, it would be nuts for any country not to enable this to happen because it's such a priceless opportunity with no GDPR threats whatsoever and only benefits to the country as well as to research.
I'll
The
take
nuts word may not be an official word, but you know what I mean.
I will take the last two questions. We were a little late with the speakers, so we'll give an extra time for questions. I know the ISO 27560, formerly known as consent receipts, is in the rolling plan for ICT standardization. Has it been used in the xShare project?
Mario, will you take it? Or
Can you repeat, please, the question?
Sure. I know the ISO 27560, formerly known as consent receipts, is in the rolling plan for ICT standardization. Has it been used in the xShare project?
No. At the moment, as you said, is not official. There is not official publication for that. We are waiting till the finish of the way to be official. This standard is not completed.
Rebecca, you
Rebecca-
wanted to add something?
Yes, I believe when we were doing our work for the data elements and the whole process of the research for work package 5, that we reviewed that as well when we were looking at everything. So I would say that we would consider the content there as we were doing the work. I believe, if I'm remembering the right thing. Thank you.
I have a last question now. Does it include IPS plus genetic data, that is NGS, or is there an intention to do so in the future?
Yeah, go ahead.
That is for Rebecca or Deepak, maybe. Rebecca, maybe.
I can answer this. So we have the core specification, and the genetic data would be part of observations for labs and fire. And the HL7 actually has an IG for genomics, and CDISC has a genomics specifications as well. So if you think about the bigger picture, the core hardware is there, but that's not a part of this. However, the infrastructure is in the works in very different avenues, if that helps. I don't know.
Yeah, indeed, I would like to add that there are a couple of projects that are looking into extending the EHDS in the genomic space for particular therapeutic areas. And there is work done in standards bodies that can be used there. This could be a possible extension that somebody would like to demonstrate here, if interested. Yeah, the work of GA4GH, for instance, is key there.
Yes. I think, Asia, it's time maybe to close.
Yes.
It is.
What
It
do you
is.
think?
I would
So,
like
Yeah.
to. I don't know if I have to give the floor back to
yes,
Anna to
I can
close.
close us. Yes. So thank you all. Thank you all for joining us today. We hope the session gave you some useful insight, and very big thank you to our speakers for sharing their expertise. So before we wrap up, just a quick reminder that the deadline for applying to the open call has been extended to 15th of December. So you still have time to prepare your submission and send it to the address indicated here, xshare@eucrof.eu. The recording and the slides will be shared with you soon. If you have any follow-up questions, feel free to reach out at the address is indicated here, and have a great rest of the day, and we look forward to seeing you at our next webinar. Thank you all.
Thank you very much to all, really.
Bye-bye.
Bye, everyone.
Thank
Bye,
you.
everyone.
Great questions. Thank you. Bye.
Oh.